today I'm going to be making shrimp fra Diavolo with penne. And the reason I'm making that, and I know frozen shrimp is really easy to thaw out and make a meal, but this recipe is really cool because you can make your pasta with your shrimp right in the Instant Pot at a half the time and just one pot. You don't have to have many pots and strainers to wash at the end. Without further ado, I will be turning on my Instant Pot. First, I'm going to put it on saute. I pressed saute and then it automatically went to more because that's what I used last time. So if you don't know anything about Instant Pot, this particular model, which is Dual Plus, memorizes your last setting. So if I press, I'm going to do this again. If I press saute, it has low, normal, and more setting. So that actually depends on the heat level. So obviously low is very low and normal is kind of average. And if you want a really high heat, you put it on more. And it also has timer settings. So you can make it 1 minute or you can make it up to 30 minutes. So I put it on 30, it's on more, it's getting warmer. And I'm going to be adding about 3 tablespoons of oil. I'm using olive oil today because it's shrimp, it's Italian dish. I love olive oil from my local olive oil shop called the Twisted Branch. I'll be sauteing sliced medium-sized onions. I don't know if you can hear the sizzling sound, but it is getting hot, and I'll let it simmer. I know some people close the lid for the onions to get softened and caramelize. We can do that. For now, I'm going to let it cook, and I have my salt shaker. It's not in the instructions, but I like to add a little bit of salt to the onion. We're going to let it cook, and now I'm going to show you how to use this garlic plate. Great plate. So this is the great plate, and I've already peeled one garlic. And basically what you're doing is mincing. And the reason I like this so much is that it doesn't hurt my fingertips. I don't cut it like I do with metal plates. And it basically, the whole thing just stays right in there. That's just one garlic clove. Now I'm going to be peeling 2 more cloves using this little garlic peeler. All you do is stick your garlic in there and kind of roll it. And the peels come right off. See? And whatever didn't get peeled completely, it's so easy to take the peel off. Now let me mince the rest of the garlic. Now I'll be cooking this in the sauce, so it's really not everything has to be totally minced, but even if you have little bit chunks left, it's okay because they'll be completely cooked with the sauce in the Instant Pot. Okay, now after I do that, then I take the brush and you kind of brush it off so that every little piece gets added to the Instant Pot. Easy peasy, right? Now, usually I will add a little bit of water to get every little thing off, every little pieces off. Oops, line garlic everywhere. Okay, so there's that, and then now I'll be sauteing more. Now remember, you don't have to wait until everything is completely cooked because you'll be cooking it with the rest of your ingredients. Okay, so it's getting there, it's getting soft. Now, meanwhile, I've already washed the shrimp. These were frozen shrimp. I just washed and rinsed it just so that I can get all the little, debris or any kind of foreign objects out of the shrimp shells. And it's still frozen. It's still solid frozen. And I'm going to be adding that to kind of give it a quick coat of the garlic flavor. It's not going to be completely cooked and completely thawed. These are frozen jumbo shrimp, and they were deveined. And this has the shells on. I like to cook with shells on, but the recipe in the book calls for shells, but you can really use any kind of shrimp, honestly. I think that shelled shrimp has less flavor, but that's just me. Okay, so we got the shrimp going. Now I'm going to be adding the diced tomatoes. This is tomato paste for richer flavor. And then Italian seasoning. I have my recipe in my keto book, but you can get any kind of good quality Italian seasoning. Now I'm going to be adding crushed red pepper flakes. Mixing it just so that pepper flakes are not clumped up together in one area. And then I'm going to be adding basil, fresh basil, and fresh parsley. This seems like a lot, but it's about a quarter cup. I'll have some for garnish later. And then I'm going to be adding a cup of wine. Now you know that for Instant Pot, you need to have at least a cup of liquid. So a cup of liquid is necessary for the pot to come to pressure. Depending on what kind of recipe you're cooking, you can get away with half a cup, like vegetables, because vegetables create liquid. So adding a cup of water will be sufficient. Now for this recipe, because I'll be adding the pasta, I want more liquid so that pasta will be submerged in liquid. So I have a cup of wine, and I'll be adding a cup of water on top, and then pasta. Now I'm going to be distributing the pasta, not clumped together in one area, because you don't want uncooked, clumpy pasta. So what I'm doing is I'm just patting the pasta down so that they are submerged in liquid. Not mixing it, just making sure that pasta pieces are wet and they're submerged in the liquid. Okay, I'm gonna take this out, and I don't know if you can see this, but can you see this? Can you see this? Okay, so all the ingredients are submerged in the liquid, and then I'm going to be adding the sea salt. I added a little bit when I was sauteing the onion, so I'm not going to add that much more. And then I'm going to just add it down again. Now, right now, it kind of looks like soup because of the liquid, because of the water, but it'll all get absorbed by the pasta. I'm going to make a cup so. And then close the lid, make sure the vent handle is on sealing. And then what I'm going to do is press cancel, because right now it's still on saute. So I'm going to cancel that function, and then I'm going to be doing pressure cooker. Now your pot might be different. I don't know if you have a manual button or a pressure cook button, but bottom line is you want to do the pressure cooker, but you want the pressure level to be low, and I'll explain why that is. And then we're going to be doing 5 minutes. The kind of pasta I like to cook are pasta that is thick, like penne, ziti, and I think those are the types of pasta I have in the book. And the reason is, if you get things like angel hair pasta or thin spaghetti pasta, they tend to get clumpy altogether. I know some people like to cut them in half and then they scatter when they put it in, and it may work, but it never comes out that perfect for me. So I like to use shaped pasta that are thicker, like ziti and penne, and even rollatini. Now, I have brown rice pasta as the ingredient in the book, in the recipe, which is like this. This is the brown rice, and I think I got this from Costco. And it's rotini. It has like a screw shaped pasta, and this works really well. It keeps the sauce in between really well, and it cooks really well. And this one is quinoa. I mean, this is elbows, but this brand also makes other types of shapes. Now lately I've been using, this is not gluten-free, but I've been using pasta from Italy. This is made in Italy, it's organic, and my kids seem to be okay. This is penne, and this is what I use today. So as my children's food-related health challenges change, I'm experimenting with different types of flour. And they, of course, like wheat flour if they don't have any problems. But they've had issues in the past, so that this is what I used. So lately, I've been playing around with Italian durum flour or semolina flour pastas, and they've been okay. And we don't eat it every day, so their systems tend to be okay. But it's up to you. You can use gluten-free pasta like these, or you can use regular pasta. Cooking time is half of the time that the package recommends, whether it's gluten-free or not. Okay, so even though my book is paleo, honestly, you can change the paleo ingredients to the ingredients that you can have. So if you don't like these, you can try, the regular pasta. But the rule of thumb is, see what the package says. If it says 7 to 8 minutes, go with 4 minutes. If it says 10 minutes, go with 5 minutes. You don't need a full time, that the package says. That's for stovetop instruction. But for Instant Pot, you can get away with cutting the time to half. The important thing, too, is going with low pressure. And the reason for that is because when no moisture escapes, or there's no, it's pressurized in this apparatus, so there's no steam, there's no air, there's nothing coming out. So the starchy ingredients like pasta will create a lot of foam, and same thing with rice. So in fact, the rice function uses low pressure. If you have, let's say, a very small, maybe a 1 cup of jasmine rice or 1 cup of short grain rice, and you're using a pot-in-pot method, or even if you just put it in there, you can get away with high pressure. But if you're cooking like 3 or 4 cups, that's going to fill up about half of the inner pot. When you cook pasta on the stove, you know how it overflows? Well, same thing is happening here, and you don't want that to clog up the vent, or you don't want any problem inside the pot that you can't fix right away. So go with low pressure and half the time of what the pasta package says. Because there's pasta in there, I don't want to open it like right away. I'll wait a few minutes, or I'll open it little by little. And what happens is sometimes the top portion of the pasta might not get completely cooked, but once you mix it around, and if it's really not cooked, you can put it on saute and let it simmer a little bit, and then it'll get cooked completely. So again, my book is called the No-Thaw Paleo Cooking in Your Instant Pot, 75 recipes, and it has a section that explains the different cooking tips using this method, and it talks about what kind of meat size you can cook in the Instant Pot if it's frozen, because you can't cut it when it's solid raw, right? So it gives you tips on what you should do before you freeze your meat. Can you cook bone-in or boneless meats? The answer is yes, both. What kind of meat size should you have depending on what Instant Pot size you have. Talks about browning frozen meat. Can you brown frozen meats? The answer is yes, but it goes more into it. And it talks about how to prep more, like should you season your meats before you freeze and things like that. And finally, it talks about food safety. One of the things that I came across when I was developing the recipes is food safety. My kids will taste, they're my taste testers, and they'll say, is this cooked, is this done? They want to make sure that the food was completely cooked. And it was a point that I really had to pay attention to. So I talk about food safety a lot, especially since it's frozen food, and when you take it out, how do you know it's done? How do you know it's safe to eat? So I talk about that. And there are recipes that are classic, like beef stew, chili, and things like that. But there are recipes that I developed, especially that works well with frozen meats. Not all frozen meats work well when you cook in the Instant Pot. So I chose specifically those types of meats and cuts that are good for cooking as a frozen ingredient. So grab a copy. It's available everywhere books are sold. If you live outside the United States, it's available with free shipping on bookdepository.com, and they'll ship worldwide free. So I hope you try the cookbook. And for the timing's sakes, I'm going to depressurize manually. Just make sure that when you depressurize manually, as you know, the vent is away from your face, right? And then for things like pasta, you want to depressurize little at a time, so that everything, if there is food or foam, it doesn't come out all at once and then make a mess. Now, a lot of people recommend putting a towel over the vent handle, which I do not recommend. It will damage your pot. It'll just avoid the warranty. So I wouldn't put the towel over it, and just let it depressurize slowly. That's not that much steam because it doesn't have that much liquid. I assume that the pasta has absorbed a lot of the liquid, so the pressure is a lot less. And then when the pen goes down, it's safe to open. Check. Then open. I hope you know this trick. You can put the lid on the hole on the side. How do you know when the shrimp is done? You know it's done when it's like this curly. And this pasta is hot, but you can tell it's done because look, it's soft and squishy. Depending on how much onion or how much shrimp you're using. I didn't blend this very well because I don't even have a fork around. You will have some liquid, like from the tomatoes. It's not going to be like a thick sauce, because I think I used more tomatoes, but look how delicious that looks. And you can top with some parsley and some basil. And if you like, you can add some cheese, some Parmesan cheese or pecorino. And you can even add more crushed pepper flakes if you like it even spicier. I'll just taste a little bit. I could have used more pepper flakes, I think. So good. It's perfectly cooked. 5 minutes, and that's the regular wheat flour penne. And you don't have to use a strainer. You don't have to use another pot to boil the pasta, and it's perfect. So I hope you enjoyed the cooking show. This is my first time, so of course there are some little blippers and bloopers and oopsies, but anyway, so I hope you try my book, and if you did try my book and tag me on social media, the recipes you made, and I'll share with my followers. I have the link to where you can buy the books from Amazon, so you can click that and get your copy as well. Thank you. Perfect. Al dente.